So as we really started getting into the story, we realized another part of what we wanted to write was about control. It was about being in an industry where you don't really have control.
We took it into our own hands to tell this story, and we weren't waiting for any gatekeepers, so to speak, to be able to do this and really owning our agency.
Switch from this waiting for people to help us do it into let's do this ourselves. Welcome to another episode of The Life We Create. I am Cobain Rivers.
And I'm Taylor Stevens.
And really excited today about today's episode. I think we've been wanting to talk about this for quite a while, quite a minute. And so the days today, get hyped. We're talking about our short film called The Actress.
Yes, The Actress. We have been hard at work the past 6 months on this. And in theory, it actually started about 5 years ago, this concept.
It did. But sometimes you need a catalyst to get you to jump into the idea. And that's what happened for us. So today, we really want to talk about this concept of turning fog into form. What does that mean, you may ask? Turning fog into form is really about taking that initial idea, that first thought about something, and molding it into the actual piece of art or creativity. But that doesn't happen instantly. It doesn't just go from I've got an idea to all of a sudden the next day, bam, it's all figured out. It's a process.
And one must act like a scientist and experiment and get in there. And as you do it, you see that you get something solid out of the fog. So
yeah. So for us, that was sitting down and actually working through the idea. When we came up with The Actress, it was a very thin idea that we knew we wanted to make a story about an actress who deals with constant rejection and what that does to her psyche. It was a horror film. It was slasher based. And that was the core concept. It took us a while to actually get it into story form, I think because we had this big lofty idea for it.
yeah.
And we never really sat down to build the journey.
Yeah, we never fleshed it out. It like kind of stayed in like a cryogenic state for a while, just kind of incubating, like, or just like sustained. It was sustained life, but like it wasn't actually living. It was just, what am I trying to say? It was preserved. It was being preserved. Yeah.
And so the story now is about an actress who is struggling, trying to get roles. She finally lands a large role, and then that role is taken by her nemesis, and it sends her over the deep end, and she decides to take violent action. Our logline for this is an offbeat horror actress on the edge of mental collapse spirals into violence after losing a career-defining role, only to discover that murder might be her ticket to fame. So this is a horror thriller. Dark comedy. I think a lot of serious situations have comedic moments. I'm one of those people that in the most awkward of situations, I will laugh. I can't help myself.
Like a nervous laugh sometimes. That's me.
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't be so crazy that I have to laugh. Like my body doesn't know any other response. It's happened in arguments, and I'm like, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at this situation.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to incorporate that. We felt like that was realistic, having these moments where things are so awkward or so, uncomfortable that humor comes out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's almost like when something is like so serious, it's funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So kind of like that.
Absolutely. But we finished it and we really grinded away at it and really breaking ground on the story. It took a couple drafts for it to really start formulating the way that we wanted it to. So that was exciting, just going through that process. And so here we are now with a finished script ready to move into the stage of building our crew and casting it. We have a producer already who is a solid friend of ours, but he's also a working director. I will be directing it. Taylor will be starring in it, and we both co-wrote it. So here we are.
Here we are, and all those drafts talking about fog into form. all those drafts that we did got us to the form. But let's take it back to the fog. Let's talk about where this idea came from.
Yeah. It started while Taylor and I were watching Fosse Verdon on FX. This was 2019 is when the first initial idea started. There's a scene where Bob Fosse is working on All That Jazz. And there's the intro where you've got this big cattle call of dancers auditioning for this musical. And as we're watching it, you just see the intensity of people trying to land this role. And that reminded me of just with Taylor and I, our struggles and achievements and whatnot in the industry. Me in music and then Taylor in acting.
And just the journey, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because it's not even, well, yeah, I would just say it's just part of it. Like, not even always a struggle. It's just part of the experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And seeing that, I was like, oh, that's a really cool way of showing this intensity and how going through this process of trying to compete with sometimes 100 other people for one role can be on a person, like what that impact's like. And then when we watched All That Jazz to actually dig deeper from what the show showed us, the opening sequence, how Bob Fosse showcases that grind for trying to land this role or move up in this world, it was such good filmmaking.
I want to say that scene actually was even inspired by the opening of Chorus Line. It's very similar.
Okay.
Because it's a widely known experience.
Right.
And in that time specifically, that experience was all to get, like, your competition was side by side. You were all in person doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the initial idea came from. And then tying it into our lives, I had been watching at the time Taylor constantly going out and getting these auditions. You'd get some others you wouldn't get. And I watched for a period of time there where it was getting, got a little dark.
Cobain's seen my whole acting experience and, like, evolution, because he's literally witnessed me, like, crying from acting class at one point. Like, it was, he's seen my everything.
Yeah. And so those moments really helped inspire who this character was going to be. Luckily, Taylor, you've got not only a good support system, but you also knew to, try and separate some of these feelings and address some of these feelings and deal with it, because it is like 90% rejection.
Yeah. Well, and to that, it was really separating my identity from the experience itself,
Yeah, which not a lot of people do. A lot of people, this is their life, and every no chips away further and further. And so that really was shaping the story, or the idea was, okay, what happens when you put somebody in this situation that is not built for this consistent rejection, and not even just not built for it, but
isn't seeking any help,
doesn't have tools, doesn't have a support system, doesn't have all the things to help you pull yourself outside of the situation and say, okay, hey, I get it's been a tough year. This is not happening the way I want, but let me reset, let me keep going at it. And so we wanted to write about a character that didn't have that.
Yeah, showing lack of support, kind of living off of toxic survival skills in a cutthroat industry.
Yeah. Because the industry is not sunshine and rainbows. You have to have thick skin, and that's even when you are achieving, when you're doing well. You've got to be able to take it on the chin, as they say. We often think, at least I do, I think there's a lot of fallacy in that. I think it's crazy that we accept that.
That's showbiz.
Yeah. In music, it's a little bit different in the sense that you have, I think, more agency over your career as a business. Well, not your career, but your attempts as a business, because you have to get yourself to a certain level before people even are paying attention to you. And at this time in acting, there was a lot more of, you have to impress the right person in the room. Now, that's changed quite a bit over the years. I think music and acting are now similar because both industries are expecting you to already have a following.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's also discourse around that too, where like I haven't just read this thing from George Clooney about saying like, there was a discussion over choosing two different actors, and one had, a lot more followers, blah, blah, blah. And his take was, don't even be on it. So that's not even part of the discussion, don't even be on it so they can't compare that. It's like there's so many different, there's a lot of different ideologies around that, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think what's happening is the same thing that always happens, where people are learning that follower count doesn't always translate to sales or viewership.
Yeah. And because now followers really don't equate to
Engagement,
the amount of views you'd expect from a certain following. Virality can happen to anyone. I think the landscape's shifting again.
Yeah. So as we really started getting into the story, we realized another part of what we wanted to write was about control. It was about being in an industry where you don't really have control. You don't have control over your art. You don't have control over how you show up. You don't have control over how you navigate through this world. You are appealing to the masses. You're trying to sell large things. So it was writing this story about this woman who is not in control of her life, is tired of being rejected, is tired of being treated in misogynistic ways, and decides to take control in the craziest way.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely like a meta element to this as well, because we took it into our own hands to tell this story.
Yeah.
And we weren't waiting for any gatekeepers, so to speak, to be able to do this and really owning our agency.
And I'd say that process came from sitting down to figure out the idea, because I think that is what took us so long to get to writing it, was we were kind of waiting for the opportunity to present itself. And it wasn't until a friend of ours who is now a producer on it, where we talked to him about it. We pitched the idea, and his thought was, okay, we'll create the story, write it out, and then let's make it.
Yeah.
So it did switch from this waiting for people to help us do it into, oh, okay, let's do this ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we were kind of in that limbo of like, how are we going to do it? We're not sure, how it's even going to come together. And then essentially that cosign really kicked it all into gear. Yeah.
It's changed quite a bit over this period of time. Like I said, the goal is for it to be a feature. So this is meant to introduce the world and really
whet your appetite.
Yeah, and put the vision out there, so that we can then take this and do a more fleshed out and deeper version that really gets into the nitty-gritty of all the things that we want to talk about.
Yep. Nitty-gritty was in my head. You said it.
Oh, nice. We're connected. It'd be like that. And so, the earlier versions, I think one version had it starting with Sophia, that's the main character, with her in the middle of a kill. And then we would get this flashback of what got her to this point.
Yeah.
Another version started with her already being at the point of fame, and she's now telling the story of how she got to fame.
Yeah.
And
that
that
like
was
a circular thing.
And then there's another version that was just completely in the audition room. And so she was going to be just auditioning. And as we watch this audition happen, as she's giving this like performance of a life, we would get these flashbacks of all the stuff she had to do to get to this moment. So because she was preparing for this role of a killer. And so we would see all the preparation she did to get ready to be a killer.
Or every cause that led to the effect. Yeah.
And so that was like, these are the other ideas that we had. And as we were sitting down thinking these ideas, it was like, okay, well, what's this one saying? Is it really speaking to the to the themes that we touched on earlier? Is it speaking to the way the industry treats people?
Is this the story we want to tell?
Mhm.
Yeah, we had to be really specific
Yeah.
about certain details. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really, I think that's what helped with the outline, is really figuring out, okay, what do we want to say?
Mm-hmm.
Who is this character, Sophia? And we did extensive background on Sophia. We pretty much mapped out what her journey was. In the story, she's 25 years old. We had mapped out what her journey was since adolescence. We talked about what her parent life was like. We talked about what her friends, her high school, middle school friends were like, what her dating life had been like. We really created this depth to her because we really needed her to feel real.
Yeah. And someone that you may not necessarily relate to, but you could understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think my thought was I did want you to relate to her. I wanted
Up
you
to a certain
up
point.
to a certain point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted there's going to be a crossroads where you're like, all right, I don't know if I would have done that thing.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
But there was supposed to be like you're rooting for this person throughout the story. And so there were all these different iterations, and our inspirations were coming from different places. Like I mentioned, at one point it was a straight up slasher, and we wanted it to be, I think X and Pearl were big influences at one point for what we wanted to do with her. And then as we were working the story, we were like, okay, I think there's a lot of, we wanted this gritty Los Angeles, like this really like dark and noir kind of Los Angeles. And then as we started writing it, that kind of disappeared. And we went for parts of it. It's a brighter Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to really dig into not only just color theory, but environment and this juxtaposition of the world, how it exists, and how Sophia sees the world. We really were trying to create the ability for you to feel like you're a part of her psyche breaking down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Almost visceral.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. Initially, I wanted a lot of the dialogue to feel like Quentin Tarantino dialogue. I wanted it to be very quippy, very quick-witted, and that to be where the majority of the plot came from. But that kind of, as we got into the story, that really changed right away. We realized that didn't actually fit into this world.
Yeah. It turned into, like, it was more of, like, just focusing on the visual language than, like, verbal language so much.
Yeah, and then realizing that for the audience to really feel conflicted by the end of the story, that first half of it, we really needed to allow the audience to live inside of Sophia. And Sophia's a loner, she doesn't really have anybody. So that beginning portion of things, you really needed to get into this space of, okay, how does somebody like that live? How do they exist? They're not talking to a lot of people. So if they're not talking to a lot of people, we can't have a ton of dialogue moving the story along because you're going to have this person just dealing with themselves.
Yeah. At one point, we even had a lot of, like, voiceover narrative from her. Yeah.
Yep. And then we kind of took that out. I think that was like the fifth draft. We were kind of sitting in it and being like, the voiceover, like, we like what's being said, but we don't know now where we're at if it makes sense.
Or even fit into the character that, like, kind of came out of all these writing sessions.
Yeah. And part
or at
of
least this version of the story.
Yeah. And what sucked about that is so much of the comedy lied in those pieces of dialogue. And so we had to kind of rework, okay, where does the comedy come in now and how do we build that in? And we found ways to do it, but it was such a reworking in the moment. You have an idea and then you recognize, like, as we're writing it, our ending didn't work. We were really trying to get into this ending. And after the first draft, we were like, not only does this ending not work, our antagonist in this is really just a plot piece. Like, she wasn't really a character. She was just an obstacle. And so we ran into these things that we didn't even know we were going to run into because these parts weren't fleshed out yet.
Yeah, until we started doing it. Yeah.
Yep. Fog isn't the actual problem. Fog is just the starting line. And so that's where you're at. When you've got the fog, you're ready to get started. But the reality is momentum. Momentum is what's going to take this to the finish line.
Yeah, totally. And we acknowledge like the hardest part often, like that fog that we're talking about, the hardest part is starting, usually. It's like this idea can live in your head forever, but like how do you start sometimes?
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even just starting the first time. It's how do you start the second time, the third time, the fourth time? Like every time in that beginning stage, sometimes it takes a lot of effort to sit down and put pen to paper, especially if you've got a lot of different things going on.
Yeah. And because of that, like we wanted to make progress, like we wanted to really dedicate our creative energy to this. Sometimes like we just need a little something to get going. And that something for us was coffee.
Yeah. It was creating a ritual, something that we could, like a trigger,
Yeah.
something that we could sit down and every time we did this thing, we knew what followed next was going to be getting into writing the script.
Yeah.
And so that really allowed us to take time when we're in the kitchen grinding beans, whether we're doing our pour over, getting everything ready. It got us into this mindset of flow.
Yeah. It's like, okay, it's go time. Like it's time to create. We have our dopamine. Let's get to it. Which is the reason why we created Brain Juice Coffee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brain Juice Coffee is our brand. You may have heard us talk about it before. And we made it specifically for creatives, for people that are trying to get into a space to create. We think coffee is a great catalyst, and so we created a coffee brand. And Cosmic Flow is our current offering that is delicious. And so I think you should try that as your ritual. You can get it on our website, brainjuicecoffee.com. Plug. But ultimately, that's the best way to start to create a structure for yourself. You create a anchor that you can do every time and allow your brain to switch and say, okay, now it's time to create.
Yeah. Your creative cue. Something that lends to your creativity.
And so that leads us to the next part, which is momentum is magic. And so, like, when I think of that, I think about you gotta walk through the fog to get to the other side where it's clear.
Yeah. Walk, run, swim your way through the fog, whatever way you can gain momentum, do that. Yeah, I like to think of like that snowball effect. Of once you get the ball formed and you start pushing it down the hill, it just kind of it gains speed and it gets bigger and bigger. Yeah.
I agree. I think those early sessions, like the first few sitting down, was really trying to figure out, okay, what is this story? What's the message? What's the structure? Where do we start? Where do we end? All these things you're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
It can be a little discouraging because there's so much. There's so much that you're trying to understand, and so it feels large. But you got to take it one page at a time.
Yep. One page at a time. I think also what really helped us gain some of that momentum was, our friend that encouraged us to do this was like, just write it all out. Just write it all out. Everything in your head, just write it out. Because I think a lot of times we can kind of stop the momentum in our heads when we're like questioning everything and like judging everything. So for me, it was like, all right, let's just get it out. And I think what helped us really gain momentum and have things click into place was once we actually fleshed out our main character.
Yeah.
And her story. And then it was like really gaining speed.
Yeah, I agree. Once we really cracked Sophia as a human, writing the story started to spill out a little bit more. And just speaking on Chris and his support, I think for us, we learned a long time ago that our biggest obstacle is often accountability. We have a lot of ideas, a lot of things we want to do, and only so much time. And so there's a lot of things that kind of fall by the wayside because you just don't keep up with it. So it was great having a partner who was like, okay, every 2 weeks we're going to meet.
Yeah.
So we'll meet every 2 weeks and we'll talk about where you're at in the script, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
And so we were able to commit to every 2 weeks we had a new draft. We had something new ready to go. There was a couple times we had to push it because the coffee world was buzzing, so we had to push it to really focus on that. But having that person regularly do the check-ins and say, okay, where are we at? Okay, and then be able to give some strategic feedback and notes on where the story's at, what pieces were missing. That was just, I can't, thank him enough for that, because it really helped us create this script, but along the way it helped build confidence in us as screenwriters.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, as you're breaking that down, I was like, wow, like Chris helped us take our idea seriously.
Yeah.
And that was pivotal for us. And I felt like Chris was really, help. He was really like the anchor in this for us, which is like, something we needed to be like, all right, we're like gonna hunker down and do this thing.
Yeah. And I'd say, just for anybody, I think where you have to start is awareness, and you've got to be aware of, what your like pitfalls are. What are the things that you've run into, and no matter the project, that end up being an obstacle. And for us, we knew it was accountability.
Yeah.
So it was great having someone there to be this voice of support for the passion project, to sit there and say, all right, let's meet up on this day and we'll talk about this passion project until it becomes a thing. And it did continually, and now here we are moving to the next phase of that.
Because this was the whole point. This is the whole point. The passion project, to express our creativity. And that's literally the whole point. The whole point of this, whole point of what we do. And yeah.
And you don't get there without knowing yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, because being, two neurodivergent brains, we often have a lot of ideas, generated ideas, and it's often like playing the idea lottery of the day.
Yeah.
So to be able to even prioritize,
And with each draft, it became a bigger priority to us. Like every time we broke ground on the story, it moved itself further and further to the top of the importance list because our passion for it kept growing.
Yeah, and it was taking shape. It was becoming real.
It was becoming real, and our confidence. And I said before, like, it really helped our confidence as screenwriters. But even as filmmakers, it was like we were developing this thing that was really becoming a message.
Yeah,
and it started to feel like it needed to be heard. It needed to be seen.
But yeah, it's very much a statement.
Yeah. And as we're writing the script, and if we're thinking about vision, like, there's so many moments where I'm like, oh man, this is just going to be really cool to see. If we can do this like it's in our heads, this is going to be really cool to see. There's some really great inspirations for things, and it is, you mentioned earlier, the visual language. It is a very visual film. We were able to write it from the stance of us making it. So we were able to write it in the language of how we wanted shots to look, how we wanted, certain scenes to transition. Really, the way we want to film it, we were able to write it that way. And so that was exciting as the director.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if it changes based on budget and stuff. But, the thing is we write it how we want to write it and have it manifest the way that we envision, because this is our story.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't really see budget affecting that as much, because we wrote a fairly contained story that I think the main budget really would come in locations, but I even think that's adjustable in
Yeah.
how we wrote it. Ultimately, I think our budget's going to go to crew and cast, which is, I think, what we wanted. We
And
wanted
equipment. I feel like that's where I'm thinking maybe some.
in the marketing, being able to really get people to see it is going to be where I think a large portion of the budget's going to go to. Um, but this is great because it started out, how do we do this, to now being like, okay, this is the way we're gonna go for this.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's more of like we're actually putting the puzzle together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, instead of just letting it sit in the box.
Yeah. So now it's just putting it together. So this came from showing up every day to do it, whether it was 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just really spending time with the idea. Sometimes it was a page, sometimes it wasn't even a page. It was like, all right, we've spent 40 minutes on these 5 lines because this dialogue does not feel like people talking. Like, it doesn't feel like how real people talk. And so we really got stuck. I think the biggest 2 things for us that really were like driving me crazy was really adding dimension to Ashley. Ashley's our antagonist. She was existing for Sophia as an obstacle, and that wasn't working. And it wasn't working in a way to where it was causing the ending to not work. And we didn't realize that at first. We're just like, why is this ending not working? What's going on? Like, this ending doesn't feel like realistic. It doesn't even feel like how these people would act. One of the notes from Chris was like, your 2 main characters feel too similar. They sound the same. And so that note really made us be like, okay, so I think the issue's Ashley.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was really good. It's really good to recognize that, see that, and like work it out. Even just figuring out the action as well in the last scene, the ending scene. Like, well, that was a fun challenge to really think of, okay, what would happen here in this
Confrontation, yeah.
Yeah, confrontation. And just the vibe of it and how things take place. And it really wasn't until like one night Cobain got up to literally physically act it out that we were like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was already thinking about these things, about how this character is going to move. And so that was when we were writing it and we're getting stuck in it. I was like, all right, we gotta bring her to life right now. Because we're stuck. We gotta bring her to life. And I think the other thing was we had gone so deep into Sophia that we had to then go deep on Ashley. We had to really give her a backstory. And I think, for me, one of the challenges was that Ashley doesn't show up until the second half of the script. So she has a smaller role, but she's all throughout the story. It felt like there was a lot to explain for her, to make her feel realized, and we want to be able to get somebody that's going to be really good for the role. And so my initial thing was, okay, I need to write this juicy, meaty thing for her so that an actress with experience wants to come in and say, okay, I could do this role because there's a lot there. And there's another note from Chris that was like, well, I think it's not so much about the dialogue as much as giving your actor something to do underneath the surface.
A lot of subtext.
A lot of subtext to actually act out something. And that's when for me, I was like, oh, okay. So you're saying let the actor act. So we then kind of really dug into who Ashley was, and we took away a lot of extra lines, but gave her these moments that allowed her to have this huge impact on how the story functions. So that was great. And then even I mentioned she doesn't show up till the second half, in like our fourth or fifth draft, being like, okay, hold on. If she's not going to do as much here in the end, we need to layer her in earlier. So it was putting her in the background of stuff, building this obsession from Sophia on Ashley, so that Ashley was existing in Sophia's world well before Ashley shows up.
Yeah. I mean, it was just apparent how important of a character Ashley is because, I mean, she has so much to do with Sophia and just the trajectory of things that she couldn't just be this eye candy. She had to be something much more layered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we took her from that eye candy into this multidimensional human who understands the entertainment world and uses it to her advantage, but she's not the exception to the rule. Like,
Yeah.
she has to deal with the shit the same way that everybody else has to deal with the shit. It's just how she navigates it. And when we talked earlier, it's about being built for the industry.
Well, like, I think what you're saying in terms of learning to navigate it is important. I think I was just thinking, like, having the capability to understand what's going on, how to, how to swim in your lane. But I think there's a lot of people, artists in general tend to be very sensitive souls. So I don't know if they're, naturally built for the industry, but I think it does take, the capacity to learn how to navigate and make it work for you.
Yes, I do agree. I think also we wanted to have this small commentary on the whole nepo baby thing.
Yeah, and that makes sense with being.
So that's so that was the part of where she was built for this because
She's been living.
she was birthed into this industry.
Yeah.
But nepotism may get you the opportunity, but it doesn't keep you in the game. And so most of the people that are successful that are people that got to benefit from nepotism, they still had to put in a lot of work to be able to get to where they are and continue to receive those opportunities. So we wanted to add all these layers in. So there's a lot of commentary in this. I'm really excited about how it shaped up and where it's at.
Yeah, excited to move forward with it and host our table read very soon.
Well,
I mean, this is something, like we said at the beginning, this is something we came up with 5 years ago. We've been wanting to make a short of our own for a long time. It has a lot of meaning for us. And like, for me personally, so long I talked to Cobain about like really wanting to write my roles, and things that I really wanted to do and to just to have that agency together.
yeah. The momentum part is really the bridge between the fog and the form. So that fog is the beginning of the idea. The momentum is what takes you to the form. And the form is going to be for us that finished version of this script. And while we're still far from the end, we've fully realized this world. We've learned these characters. We've been able to add the pieces of the story that we think are going to resonate with audiences. We've been able to build our own confidence, as I mentioned before. Building stories is something that I definitely love. So as we finish this one, I'm like, all right, I'm already thinking about, okay, what does Sophia and Ashley look like in a 1.5 hour, 2 hour story?
Yeah.
Where does this go from here? Once people see it, once they love it, where do we take this going forward for this world? It would be a fantastic problem if the next decade of our life is Sophia and Ashley. That's where my brain is at. I know there's going to be people out there that are like, you guys just wrote a script. It's not a big deal. I do think it's a big deal. I think
They're probably not our people if they're saying that.
You should champion every step of the way for bringing your project to life.
Yeah, I think every step of creativity is to be celebrated.
Yeah. And give it that recognition. And so while the story's not done, as far as it's not filmed yet, we are still very excited about this existing. It is tangible. It went from this concept in our heads to now there's a script with multiple pages, a beginning, middle, and end that you can read, that I can send to you right now. You could read and you could say, that's a that's a finished project.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us being able to finish that, especially an idea that we've been sitting on, big deal for us. And here at The Life We Create, Brain Juice Creative, we're all about celebrating every step. And so
Yeah.
for you, I wanted to ask, when in this process did you say, this script is good?
I think when I started having reactions to what was going on in the script and be like, oh shit. And like some of the dialogue, and I'm like, yeah, like that feels good. This is like something I would definitely like watch. And
Yeah.
yeah. What about you?
I felt like after we added the new opening, because we were going through the story and we were like, okay, the ending wasn't landing, and we were like, okay, what's happening? We were like, oh, we need to improve Ashley. So we started improving Ashley, but then I was like, okay, well, I feel like Sophia's turn felt sudden. Okay. Why is this the reaction she's having? And so I was like, oh, okay, we need to figure out the intro. And then, there was a part where Chris was like, you want to open with something that really stands in the minds of people because short attention spans, blah 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 blah. And we actually ended up, and this was actually his idea. We actually ended up doing the opposite and going more psychological than going fully into this shock opening. We said, okay, let's dive into this traumatic experience of our lead character. And that's when, like, for me, as after we wrote that scene and I'm sitting down, I'm reading it in the flow of the story, I was like, I like this. Like, I like what it's saying. I like what it's doing. I like that we get to dive so deep and uncomfortable into this main character. And I like the visual language we're using throughout it. Every cool shot that I've ever seen in my life. This was an opportunity to be like, oh, okay, so how do we make this not only feel impactful? I want it to stick in people's brains. So we watched things like Severance and these shows that really make what you're seeing matter just as much as what you're hearing. When I felt that way about certain scenes in our short, that's when I was like, oh, this is gonna be good.
Yeah, I felt that. The other part I felt that was during like the chase scene when it got to the point of like, this feels uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Like just that kind of like that visceral reaction to like, oh, this is gonna be creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of moments that I'm excited about because I do want people to feel uncomfortable. And I just want these real moments that people experience. I want you to be like, man, that's couldn't be me. Like, I want that to be the reaction.
Well, I feel like that's the beauty of horror is, these moments where like you're sitting in the uncomfortability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's kind of the part of the excitement too.
Yeah. There's a part in the final confrontation that I want I want that reaction or where, somebody in the theater or somebody watching it is like, oh fuck no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Nope.
Like I want that moment to happen. And so we definitely wrote this with the thought process of how's the audience gonna respond? How's the person reading this gonna respond?
Yeah.
Yeah, very excited about it. Thank you all for listening to this.
Yeah.
And we're excited for you guys to see this continue to develop. Taylor mentioned a second ago. The next stage for us for this is we're doing a table read. We're doing a table read to try and get just some extra eyes and ears on it and really get some outside notes as we're beginning a hiring crew. So the table read will be happening here in Los Angeles, where we live. And so if you're an actor and you want to be a part of something like this, definitely reach out to us, DM us, Instagram, YouTube. You can't DM on YouTube, but Instagram, you can. So hit us up. Next piece of the puzzle.
And, definitely share with us if you feel like you're sifting through fog right now. Like, we want to know because we're in it with you. Like, we want to know. It is exciting, and sure, it will come into form if you keep at it.
You find the truth of the project by making the project. The work will reveal itself.
Yeah.
And you just got to trust yourself to see it. If you've got, a project you're working on and you're like, hey, man, I like that accountability thing they were talking about. I really like that, and I'd love someone to do that for us. Hit us up. Hit us up in the comments.
Yeah.
We want to encourage you to make the stuff that you want to make because the world needs more creativity. It needs what you're about to create. So let us know what that is, and we got your back. Also, go to brainjuicecoffee.com.
I was going to say, if you need a jump start, to break through, brainjuicecoffee.com.
Get you some coffee. And until next time.
Till next time.
Where we're talking about, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. Maybe we go back to Pluribus. We'll see. But thank you for hanging out, and until next time.